good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another episode of the Snowflake Viewpoint, episode 55. The date and time is the 20th of May at 8 p.m. UK time. We are dual streaming here on YouTube and Twitch.tv, so feel free to come and say hello on both platforms. Not just here or on YouTube, the majority of you guys. Got a live YouTube chat poll for you guys, for those who are here live today, on who should be blamed for the infected blood scandal. Who should be blamed for it? So far, 8 people have cast their votes. 25% think it's politicians. No one has said initially it's just healthcare workers. 62% say it's both. And 12% say others there. So thank you guys for casting your vote who are here in the live YouTube chat poll. Make sure you cast your vote on that. It's very, very important. The gang is here on what is going to be one of the center of discussions. Obviously the blood scandal, which we will get into shortly. But let's just see who we got here in the chat. Joe Lefty is here. Good to see you, Joe. Hope you're doing well. Stephen Banker is here as well. Good to see you, buddy. Artibus is here. I'm losing my voice there. Good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. Mad Monk is here, one of our moderators. Good to see you, Mad Monk. Hope you're doing well. I was there for the whole show of the 2 Davies from start to finish. It was just I was doing work in the background while listening in. Good to see you, One Angry Pagan. Hope you're doing well. Duke Vengeance says, I don't know the context of why the blood scandal happened, so I choose other. That's perfectly all right. Hopefully I'll have some better context here with what I've got for you. Jao is here as well. Good evening, Jao. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. I think it was John Major who was PM when the blood scandal. Haran Coroner, correct me if I'm wrong. We'll have a look into. There's an analysis piece we'll look into anyway. So before I go into it, I just wanted to play a few clips, obviously from the House on this. So Rishi Sunak doing something which I've never thought I'd hear him do in his entire life, and that is give an apology. So let's hear what the Prime Minister has to say with regards to the report.
Mr. Speaker, more than 3,000 people died without that truth. They died without an apology. They died without knowing how and why this was allowed to happen. And they died without seeing anyone held to account. Today, I want to speak directly to the victims and their families, some of whom are with us in the gallery. I want to make a wholehearted and unequivocal apology for this terrible injustice. First, to apologise for the failure in blood policy and blood products and the devastating and so often fatal impact this had on so many lives, including the impact of treatments that were known or proved to be contaminated, the failure to respond to the risk of imported concentrates, the failure to prioritise self-sufficiency in blood, the failure to introduce screening services sooner, and the mismanagement of the response to the emergence of AIDS and hepatitis viruses amongst infected blood victims. Second, to apologise for the repeated failure of the state and our medical professionals to recognise the harm caused. This includes the failure of previous payment schemes, the inadequate levels of funding made available, and the failure to recognise hepatitis B victims. And third, to apologise for the institutional refusal to face up to these failings, and worse, to deny and even attempt to cover them up. The dismissing of reports and campaigners' detailed representations, the loss and destruction of key documents, including ministerial advice and medical records, and the appalling length of time it took to secure the public inquiry which has delivered the full truth today. Mr. Speaker, layer upon layer of hurt endured across decades. This is an apology from the state to every single person impacted by this scandal. It did not have to be this way. It should never have been this way. And on behalf of this and every government stretching back to the 1970s, I am truly sorry.
Sorry does not cut it. Sorry will not cut it, and we will get to hear a response from some of them shortly. I'm just going to play, I just want to play Keir Starmer's bit, and then we'll come to the first piece of this article. I just want to hear Keir Starmer's response to this as well.
This is an injustice that has spanned across governments on an unprecedented scale, and collectively we failed to protect some of the most vulnerable in our country. And so, as well as paying tribute to the courage and determination of the victims, the infected and the affected, some of whom are here in the gallery today, I want to acknowledge to every single person who has suffered that in addition to all of the other failings, politics itself failed you. That failure applies to all parties, including my own. There is only one word: sorry. And by that apology, I acknowledge that this suffering was caused by wrongdoing, delay, and systemic failure across the board, compounded by institutional defensiveness. And as Sir Brian Langstaff makes clear in his report, any apology today must be accompanied by action. And so I welcome the Prime Minister's confirmation that compensation will now be paid. And he should be under no doubt whatsoever that we will work with him to get that done swiftly. Because make no mistake, the victims in this scandal have suffered unspeakably. Thousands of people have died. They continue to die every week. Lives completely shattered. Evidence willfully destroyed. Victims marginalised. People watching their loved ones die. Children used as objects of research. On and on it goes. The pain barely conceivable.
Do you know what really angers me is, and I do use the word anger, is while the apologies from both main parties, their leaders, you can apologise, but the damage is already done, and the absolute agony that these people have gone through is just totally unprecedented. Just want to say hello to those who've just popped in, Ruth and Alistair Keir. Good to see you guys. Hope you're doing well. Even now, we still ask, where is the justice going to be? Where is the justice going to be? And Keir Starmer there, whether it was a genuine apology or not, the way it came across to me, and while he at least looked up every time, never looked across and looked up at the victims, making it very clear, it's just not going to cut it. Yeah, as Stephen Baker says, sorry doesn't cut it. None of them sounds sincere. None of this should have taken this long, and now they're throwing out the word salad. Yeah, both parties, both previous governments, tried to hide this. They've tried to hide this, and they've tried to hide the evidence for this. And we're going to hear from some of them here.
My reaction to the fact that there has been a cover-up is that to our community, that's no surprise. We've known that for decades.
If the volume's messed up, just let me know.
So now the country knows, and now the world knows as well.
Not only are you dealing with infection, dying, loss of family, loss of years and years of that have been wasted on this campaigning. It should never have happened. It should have been dealt with straight away.
And as I sit here as one of 27,000 blood transfusion victims, that's what echoes in my head. Behind every one of those 27,000 is a family.
It vindicates my impression that the knowledge was out there. Our government ignored it, couldn't be bothered with it, found it was going to be too expensive. I don't know what their excuses are, but this blatantly in black and white says that they have no excuses.
Any apologies that we've had in the past have been meaningless, because all that they've said is that this should never have happened. We know that this should never have happened. What was your part in it? What are you sorry for? That's what the community needs to hear before we can even begin to get closure on this.
No single person is responsible for this scandal. It's been the result of generations of denial, delay and cover-up. And I would expect over the coming days and weeks for many more people to come forward and say sorry. I'm sorry for my part, and if they're genuinely sorry, they will help implement the recommendations that Sir Brian has recommended today.
And we're going to hear from hear one more clip in a little bit, but just want to say thank you for One Angry Pagan for the £2 super chat. Shout out for the poor rats being compared to the Tories. Yeah, but this is not one political party. This is both parties on this. Let's be very clear about this. Yeah, Labour were in power just as much, were in power as well. Yes, while the Conservatives were in power as well. But let's be very clear here. We're not gonna. This is not something we can smear one political party over another here. This is an abject failure of the main political parties who have been in power and have tried to cover this up. That's it, full stop. There's no excuses or no coming around this at all. It's absolutely abhorrent to say the least. So, thousands of deaths could have been avoided. The final report on the infections of thousands with HIV or hepatitis C concludes. So the scandal that has caused thousands of people in the UK to become infected or die from contaminated blood was avoidable and inflamed by a suitable, pervasive and chilling cover-up by the NHS and the government, a scathing report has concluded. In a long-awaited conclusion to a 5-year public inquiry, Sir Brian Landstaff, who chaired the investigation, said the calamity could largely, though not entirely, have been avoided. But successive governments and others in authority did not put the patient's safety first. More than 30,000 people in the UK, 3,000 of whom have already died, were infected with tainted blood from the 1970s through to the early 90s, either from receiving transfusions during surgeries or through products created using blood plasma and imported from the US to heal hepatitis. If I mispronounce any of the words, I apologise. I know it wasn't One Angry Pagan, but I know it wasn't One Angry Pagan. Wasn't if I'm absolutely honest, it wasn't the ideal time for it. But I appreciate the super chat nonetheless. I appreciate the super chat nonetheless. Yeah, it was poor timing. I know it wasn't your intention. I know it wasn't your intention. I honestly know it wasn't your intention. Your intention was good, and I appreciate it. Speaking on Monday in Westminster's Central Hall near Parliament to launch the report, Langstaff was given a standing ovation by more than 1,000 infected and affected people as he walked in. The inquiry is not just investigating something that happened years ago, it is still happening, he said. People still have to care about the after effects of what happened, which their loved ones still suffer. The grief and the drama which all those who've loved their loved ones experience continue to this day. Every aspect of their lives has been defined by their infections, childhood, education, career, leisure, relationships, marriage, home ownership, travel, finance, dreams and ambitions have been lost and relationships broken. The 2,527-page final report found that patients were lied to about the risks and in some cases infected during research carried out without their consent, or in the case of children, that of their parents. There was also delays informing parents of their infections, stretching to years to come.
Can you tell us what the main findings of your inquiry are?
Well, let me put it into context. What I've been looking at are people from families across the UK who've gone into hospital for treatment, and over 30,000 have come out with infections which were life-shattering. And 33,000 of those have died, and deaths keep on happening week by week. What I've found is that disaster was no accident. People put their trust in doctors and the government to keep them safe, and that trust was betrayed. And then the government compounded the agony by telling them that nothing wrong had been done, that they'd had the best available treatment, and that as soon as tests were available, they were introduced. And both of those statements were untrue. That's why what I'm recommending is that compensation must be paid now, and I've made various other recommendations to help to make the future of the NHS better and treatment safer.
It's obviously hard to imagine that something like this has been allowed to happen. Can you just give us a sense of the scale of the devastation that has caused to families across the UK?
Well, I think the scale speaks for itself. If you have over 30,000 people who go into hospital and come out with infections which were life-shattering, that in itself is huge, and the suffering for them and for others is huge. When you add to that the fact that over 3,000 have died, and that deaths keep on happening week after week, you not only have a disaster which happened over years, but is still happening. What that brings with it is suffering which is very difficult to put into words. You really have to listen to people who've lived it to hear and to understand.
And he's absolutely right. And what really kicked me in the gut when I listened to it was when he was saying that people still, week after week, are still dying from it. That was the real kick in the gut when I watched this earlier. And I really have to get this off my chest. I'm so angry with politicians in this country. I really, really am. Because we have so many scandals that are taking place in the last few years. I know it's all eyes are mostly on the Conservatives, but we've had this. We've had Grenfell. We've had Hillsborough in the past. There's probably loads more that you guys are going to remind me in the comments. We've had so many miscarriages of justice. The post office scandal, of course. That's the post office inquiry that's taking place right now. We've had so many miscarriages of justice. And I'm asking myself, how on earth have we allowed this to happen? And in the end, taxpayers are just going to be paying this off. But the damage is already done. People cannot get that time back. People are already gone. It doesn't change the reality. It doesn't fix what's happened. And I just cannot understand why this has happened. To me, it feels like politicians are just so disconnected from ordinary people. That's how I generally feel. You know, when you hear MPs talk in the House, you know, with their posh accents, some of them, you know, and some of the things that they said, and even as far back before 2010, you know, there is a sense that I feel like that these politicians are just so disconnected from ordinary people. It's incredibly insane. And I feel like there's been such a disconnect between politicians and people, so much. And even with this Labour Party, there are one or two Labour people who are connected with their people, who are connected with the public. I generally believe that. But I look at some of the people at the top, and I don't feel that connection either. At least they talk to some of the public, but when you look at it, I just feel like there's such a huge disconnect. It feels really, really disconnected. And I think that's a major issue here. Because the response to these scandals, it's just a case of sticking it on the shelf or covering up and let it be a problem of another government, of another politician, of someone else's ownership and responsibility. When you're right there, here and there, and you can get the inquiry out or put this to bed, and you don't do it. Why? I just don't get it. Good evening, Ben Shaw. Good to see you, buddy. Langstaff said the risks of hepatitis posed, blood transfusions or the use of plasma were known prior to the NHS inceptions in 1948. So he knew as far back as 1948. While importation of Factor 8 products should never have been licensed in 1973. The risk of hepatitis was freely admitted by the makers, he said. I've concluded the UK was wrong to decide to license these products in 1973, and later decisions in the 1970s to grant further license to similar US products were also wrong. These products should simply have not been permitted to be distributed generally in this country. He said the treatment failures were compounded by denial and obscuration of function. I can't say that word, sorry. This included the misleading off-repeat statement that there was no conclusive proof and that AIDS could be transmitted by transfusion of blood and blood products when the HIV epidemic emerged in the 1980s and later. The deliberate destruction of official documents. And they deliberately tried to cover it up. Deliberately tried to cover it up. Longstaff condemned the culture in which financial and reputation consideration predomined, with the present government also critical for its failure to fully implement recommendations on compensation. Yeah, because this is just the same thing with the post office scandal. They don't want to openly. It's just exactly the same thing. They don't want to openly admit that those who were there at the time, who knew what was going on, wanted anything. No, let's cover it up. Let's be quiet. Hush, hush, shush, shush, sort of thing. And this keeps happening. This keeps happening here. Standing back and viewing the response of the NHS and the government, the answer to the question, was there a cover-up, is that has been, he wrote, not in the sense of a handful of people plotting an orchestrated conspiracy to mislead, but in the way that was more suitable, more pervasive, and more chilling in its implications. To save face and save expenses, there has been a hiding of much of the truth. Over decades of successive governments and repeated lines to take that were inaccurate, defensive, misleading, it persisted in refusal to hold a public inquiry. Coupled with defensive mindsets that refused to carry nuisance that wrong had been done, left people without answers and without justice. This also meant that many people who are chronically ill have felt obliged to devote their time and their energy to investigating and campaigning, often for a great personal cost. Yeah. And they didn't want a public inquiry on it because they knew that if they had a public inquiry, the outcome, they would have known it would get out. The report contains literally examples of research, health bodies, internal government warnings, and the press raising alarms about the risk posed by contaminated blood, only for doctors and ministers failed to change tack. For example, in 1952, the World Health Organization reported serum hepatitis as a serious problem and suggested 5 measures to reduce the staff, which Langford said, if adopted, it is reasonable to believe that a significant part of the harm in which this inquiry is focused on could have been prevented. So just right there, all the way back as far as 1952. While hepatitis C was not formally identified until 1988, the risk it posed was apparent from at least the mid-1970s, Langstaff found. With AIDS, the report said it was apparent by mid-1982 to some clinicians and with some government that whatever was causing it might be transmissible by blood and blood products. So already there, in 1982, there was reports that there might have been as well. And again, that was shelved. Despite this, there were failures to ensure rigorous donor selection and screening with continued collection of blood from prisons where donors were high risk, delays in screening and false reassurances provided to patients in 1983. A decision was not taken to suspend the continuing importation of commercially produced blood products. Langstaff said the evidence before the inquiry overwhelmingly establishes that people with bleeding disorders were not properly advised of the risks of hepatitis or AIDS. They have a right to know that factors concentrated might infect them with a series of fatal diseases for which there is no treatment. Patients had a right to know that such treatments might infect their children. In practice, either they were given no information about all of such risk, or they were falsely reassured that the treatment was safe. He said it was the time for a national reconciliation of the disaster that has been for the government to pay proper compensation to all those who have been wronged, paying tribute for those infected and affected. He said he had told powerful stories of pain, sickness and loss, and damaged lives damaged and destroyed, unrecognizable from before their infections and unrecognizable from all hope dreams for their lives. Steve McMahon, good morning. It's good to see you there. Yeah. Just gonna show you this. Some of the key people and groups involved in perpetrating the cover-up to the public health disaster and those who brought it to light. Margaret Thatcher here said that people infected with HIV from blood products have been given the best treatment available and then on the current medical advice. Is what she said. So who's responsible? Government and politicians. Successive governments are primarily to blame for the catalogue of systematic, collective and individual failures that allow the infected blood scandal to happen, though others shared of it. The chair of the inquiry, Brian Langstaff, had right. The report castrates the historical government response to the emergence of the risk of treating people with contaminated blood and blood products. In the 1980s, the government decided against any form of compensation to people infected with HIV, with the health minister at the time, Ken Clarke, saying there would be no state scheme to compensate those suffering the unavoidable adverse effects of medical procedure. The then Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, rebuffed calls for compensation by asserting in 1989 that people infected with HIV from blood products had been given the best treatment available on the then current medical advice. The repeated use of this mantra by ministers and officials over the next 20 years, including the people infected by other diseases, was wrong and amounted to blindness, according to Langstaff. Successive governments came under fire for their refusal to hold a public inquiry due to the inherent defensiveness, a reluctance to listen to the stories of ordinary people, and a fear of having to compensate victims. Ministers' refusal to own up to failings served to compound people's suffering, resulting in a decade-long battle for the truth. Langstaff asked why it took until 2018 for a UK public inquiry to be established. Viewed overall, ministers appear to have lacked curiosity in the early period of the developing crisis. Rishi Sunak's government is also criticised for its sluggish pace and a lack of transparency on compensation. The incumbent Prime Minister insisted on waiting for the conclusion of the inquiry before making final decisions on redress that has perpetrated the injustice for victims, Langstaff said. The report highlights how the truth has been hidden for decades, and there is evidence of documents from the Department of Health and Social Care, formerly the Department of Health and Social Security, being marked for destruction in 1993. Viewing the response of the NHS and the government overall, the answer to the question, was there a cover-up? It has been there, it states. Not in the sense of a handful of people plotting an orchestrated conspiracy to mislead, but in a way was more suitable, more pervasive, and more chilling in its implementations. In this way, there has been a hiding of much of the truth. Langstaff recommends culture change across the NHS to prevent cover-ups and acknowledge mistakes, with individual managers being held personally be accountable if they fail to take action. He said repeated inquiries and reports have highlighted how the culture of the NHS needs to shift, where one makes mistakes are recognised and then there is openness and transparency. Literally, yeah, this is a massive thing that needs to happen within the NHS without a shadow of a doubt. For those who have been following and seeing some of my YouTube videos, we've covered quite a variety of scandals that have been uncovered within the NHS. There was one about, obviously, how those within mental health are being really badly mistreated. There was one of stories about those who have been accused of sexual assault within the NHS as well as other stories that have been within the NHS. So there's definitely a culture issue within some, I wouldn't say all NHS, but in some of it. He said there is a need for culture change such that safety is embedded as a first principle, as he regarded an essential measure of the quality of care. I'm just not going to go just going to scroll down to this bit. So who should be credited for finally taking action? Campaigners, including victims and families, have fought for answers for decades, including launching civil cases. Numerous campaign groups such as Taking Blood and Blood Lost Families, as well as major hepatitis charities, have been working tirelessly to find the truth. The Mayor of Greater Manchester and former Health Secretary Andy Burnham has long been an advocate for the victims of the scandal. He called it one of the greatest injustices this country has ever seen and revealed that he was not told the truth by officials. Burnham said there was a fundamental rewiring of the political system was needed because too many people were being harmed and then waiting decades for justice. May, the Prime Minister at the time, finally announced an inquiry in 2017, with the first official hearing to be held in April 2019. In response to a report, she said, "I hope that today all those infected and affected by the contaminated blood scandal have got the answers they deserve. Yet again, a community has had to fight for decades for the truth to come out. We cannot and we must not continue to allow a culture whereby institutions seek to protect themselves over the people that have been damaged by their actions." I am going to give Theresa May credit for finally giving that inquiry, because previous governments, previous prime ministers have just not been doing it. So yes, it is very, very late to have finally announced that inquiry, but at least she gave them the inquiry that they needed and deserved. Victims have praised Langstaff for overseeing a brilliant inquiry. The former Higher Court judge was appointed chair to the inquiry in February 2018. He has experience in working in public inquiries, having served as a leading counsel to the Bristol Royal Infirmary Inquiry in 1998. Langstaff has been commended for his compassion by many members of the infected blood community who have said they expect his report to be balanced and fair. And without a shadow of a doubt, I mean, when you were listening to him in the video, you can hear just how no BS, just straight down the middle to you, exactly his position on this scandal. And I think that was very telling about all this. Obviously, more will come out, obviously, over time, like in terms of what some of the things in there would have been said. So we will hear more, obviously, over time. If you haven't already cast your vote, please do. I'll probably end it not too long. Probably end it about midway through, asking who is to blame for the infected blood scandal: politicians, healthcare workers, both, or others. It's pretty much 11 people cast their vote, 45% each for politicians and both. No one's directly blaming just NHS workers. One person put others as there. Just going to have a quick look and see what you guys are saying in the chat. Clotting factor, then AIDS, contaminated blood people given to people in the 1980s, says Alistair Keir. Jal says, if justice and the courts are without power, then nothing will work. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, if we didn't have the systems that we have in place, this would never have come to light. Everyone's saying good morning to Steve. Sorry for being so gloom and doom, but it gets to you. Yeah, occasionally, yeah. Okay, no, that's something else. Just been talking about the crimes they committed over the past 14 years, so 3,000 excessive deaths with the austerity, says Mark 33. Biggest UK scandal, Labour government behaviour during the Nakba and Tory government's behaviour during the Barney famine. Two legitimate examples, says One Angry Pagan. Yeah, absolutely, they were horrible. The only channels are in the UK I follow are REGANELITE, all shorts, because they're the only ones that turn. Ones not turn toxic. Many things that really disgust me. Why to hide it? Oh, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it, and I'm sure all shorts appreciates that too. Duke Venture says it's hard for poor people to be invested in politics when they are busy all hours through the day trying to get through the 9 till 5. Yeah. It was put under a 30-year rule before things could be made public, though. Jow says to Ruth. What's that about? There is not enough interest from politics from working class people. That's how they get away with it. Yep, that is true. Oh, Satru Hushi, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. Wonder who's going to play this part in the upcoming TV drama. Ain't This Country Great? Yeah, the thing is, they have literally like the fact that the post office scandal only got blown up because of an ITV drama does sometimes highlight how dumb some people really are. You know, it takes a drama for people to wake up and realize, hey, this is a scandal, you know, rather than just reading it in a paper or hearing about it online. The biggest miscarriage of justice is the effing Tories that are still not in jail, says Bad Monk. You know, there's not, I just generally want, it's generally the establishment is responsible. And the thing is that, yes, there's going to be compensation, but there's going to be no criminal charges. Again, no criminal charges on this. Anyone make a mistake, such a catastrophic one, but you have to admit and correct it. Yeah. If any of us, anyone who is outside of politics, right? Any one of us who is responsible for something like this, we go to jail. We go to jail. But because they are politicians, because of who they are as politicians, they get treated differently. And this is the thing that infuriates me. How often do we actually have politicians end up in prison for their actions? Like in general, in time span, yeah, ever since in the UK, like over the last 30 years, like how often do politicians actually go to prison? It's always one rule for them and another rule for all of us. Because if any one of us, ordinary people, did what they did, the politicians, the healthcare workers, whoever was, you know, the groups of people behind this, we would straight away go to jail. But because of who they are, they will not. it's not just the injustice of the fact of it's happened and how it's happened and why it's happened. The injustice is that there will not be justice in terms of criminal charges, of putting these people in prison, throwing away the key. That's the thing that just as much infuriates me more than anything, is what's happened here. Phil McCracken, good to see you there, buddy. It was more than civil servants than politicians. They were the ones constant. Yeah, civil servants did play a role in this. I didn't think about civil servants, but thank you for highlighting that. During that time, they were treated by at least the state free of charge, says Jal. Contaminated blood from USA and Netherlands, as per UK, has always been a blood shortfall donation, says Aztec here. Yeah, I get quite a lot of emails from the blood thing asking me to donate. No, every time I really should donate blood, if I'm honest. I really should. Words from that lot are empty rhetoric, says Ruth. It's very empty. It's very, very empty from them. It is very, very empty from them. That's for sure. But I'm sure more people will continue to cover it as we go along, guys. So we're going to come away from this scandal, and it probably won't be the last time we talk about it. Reg, good to see you there. I hope you're doing well. Why can't everyone saying hello to him, and why can't I see him highlighted in the chat here? That's very weird. That's very, very weird. One other big story that's it's kind of gone under the radar, obviously, since this has come out, obviously. This from Sky News. Julian Assange wins a High Court bid to bring appeal against extradition to the US. So the US authorities want to push the WikiLeaks founders' trial over 18 charges, nearly all under the Espionage Act, with Monday's decision making the latest chapter in 13 years of legal battles and detention from the Australian. So this is still not going away for him. And America will not stop pursuing this man. And it's extremely frustrating, to say the least, on this. I know some people have mixed feelings as well, because obviously there was a sexual allegation against him in Sweden. And he's not faced Swedish courts for that. And he should do. He should face the charges and take that case on. But the reason why he won't go near that is because if he does, Sweden will take him to the US, and if he goes to the US, he will die. There's no joke. He will die if he goes there, and he's already. I mean, if you look at him now, he's already like that. That was in 2019. He's already gone. So Julian Assange will be allowed to appeal against his extradition to the US. 2 judges responded today at a US assurances that Mr. Assange will not face the death penalty and can rely on the First Amendment right to free speech if he's faced a trial for spying. The WikiLeaks founder faced prosecution in the US over an alleged conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defense information after the publication of hundreds of thousands of leaked documents related to the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. Edward Fritzars Casey, representing Mr. Assange, criticised the assurances of Joe Biden's US administration at the hearing. He said, based on the principle on the separation of powers, the US court can and will apply US law whenever the executive may say or do. He added many of the promises were blatantly inadequate, but he had accepted the promise about the death penalty. In written submissions, the barrister said that while assurances over the death penalty was unambiguous executive promise, the other assurances does not give any reliable promises to the future action. The barrister added what needs to be consistently removed is the risk that he will be prevented from relying on the First Amendment on grounds of nationality. But James Lewis Casey, representing the US government, insisted the judicial branch of the United States will take due notice of the solemn assurances given, but its government is in the course of international relations. In written submissions, he said that there is no question that Mr. Assange, if extradited, will be entitled to the full parliamentary of due process trial rights, including the rights to raise and seek to rely upon the First Amendment as a defence. I don't buy this at all from them. Context, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. He later told the court the assurances does not make it clear he will not be discriminated against because of his nationality. I don't think his nationality cares. I just think they want him dead, the US. He can and will be able to raise all the arguments in his nationality and will not be prejudged a fair trial. Mr. Assange's legal team said it could be months before the appeal is heard. Today's decision is the latest chapter in 13 years of legal battle and detention for the Australian-born Mr. Assange. The US authorities want to put Mr. Assange on trial over 18 charges, nearly under all the Espionage Act. They claim the actions against the WikiLeaks was reckless, damage for national security, and endangered the lives of agents. During the two-day hearing in February, the lawyers for Mr. Assange asked for permission to challenge a judge's dismissal of the majority of his case to prevent the extradition. I'm not going to read the rest of it, guys, because I think we've covered Julian Assange quite a fair bit already. But the link for the rest of it, if you want to read the rest of it, is just kind of regurgitating what we already know the rest of it. But as of right now, I don't know. I just like this. For me, it just feels like, let him go back to his home country. Like, can we just, you've punished, like, he has been punished enough. To me, he has been punished enough. He's literally, his life has been ebbing away. What's up? Reganelite, you know that you're getting there when the chat is rolling as it is tonight. Well, these lot, yeah. Well, it's nice to have a very active chat on YouTube. It's just shame can't be said for Twitch, unfortunately. But yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate the comments. But yeah, I mean, 18 years he's been in confinement. 18 years we've been behind bars. You know, hiding in embassies. I mean, for like, just let it go, America. Like, just let it go. Like, I don't like what more. Like, you know, what more damage do you need to do? Like, they are hell bent. They want this man killed. They really do. Well, I don't know. Actually, I'll take a step back and I'm going to go further. They allegedly want to torture him before they be done with him. America. They want to torture him. They want to torture him. They really do. Like, all these things they're saying, oh yeah, we'll make sure he has his First Amendments. Oh yeah, we'll make sure this, we'll make sure that. No. He sets foot on US soil, he's going to disappear. He's going to disappear. They will make him disappear, because they will make everything like it's totally fine, and then when the media stops talking about him and talks about other stuff, that's when they will start the punishment on him. That's when they'll start the torture on him. They will wait for the media to stop talking about him, and that is when it will come to him. But that's how it's going to work. It's always when the media has turned their eyes are elsewhere. And that's the scary thing. We do need more whistleblowers, Stephen Banker. You're absolutely right. We do need more whistleblowers. That is for sure. But, well, obviously, anything new that or updates on Julian Assange, I'll obviously let you guys know as soon as possible. So guys, if you're not already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. Any of those things really does make a massive difference to the channel here. So if you do any of those things, it'd be greatly appreciated. The gang is here. I can't put my hands anywhere near the orb because it will cause the microphone to turn off. But the gang is all here. They seem pretty happy, and the orb is formed already pretty early. I had it on quite early, to be fair, for you guys as well. So yeah, any like, sharing, subscribing, all that stuff, guys, really does help me. Helps out Ollie, who's sitting on top of the orb. Pingu, who looks like Pingu's going to do something really cruel or evil at any moment, and Cash Dummy there, who's just barely visible, hiding between the two. So any of that stuff, guys, really does make a big difference. So thank you for guys if you do that. So we're going to go a bit well away from these dark stories and go for a bit of an interesting one here that I found on the BBC before we go to our funny video. And this one is about what happens when councils take control of buses. So buses are the most commonly used form of public transport in England, yet in recent years routes have been disappearing at an alarming rate. So I don't recall if I've let me make sure I've got this is the right one. It is the right one. I'm just double checking. Now, where I live, obviously, and in my area is pretty much well controlled, because obviously I'm just literally outside. I'd say outskirts of London. enough from where I live. So transport is not an issue for me. But obviously in some parts of England especially where they're quite rural, there are very few to no near enough buses. And without a shadow of a doubt, the last 14 years of austerity have led to less buses running and some routes disappearing altogether, which means that some people who go to bus stops find out that their bus is no longer running. Obviously, the power of, as time has gone on, obviously the power of social media with apps and whatnot, it's becoming easier for people to get into finding out when their bus is running. Obviously, and that kind of stuff really does make really make a difference. But in some towns and whatnots, they still have decent buses. But if you're out in the rural areas, like if there's no train station, you won't get very rarely you'll get a bus, and if it does come, it comes very, very late, because at the end of the day, it's not up to the councils, because they're owned by private businesses. And what do private businesses, as we all know, what's their priority for them? Money, profiteering. That's the main priority. So what happens when you put buses back into the hands of public ownership? It means that they get it's not about the money, it's about ensuring that people are able to get to A to B, that people are able to get a bus, that they know when that bus is coming. Are public buses perfect? No. Do they have their faults? Yes. But are they much better assurances that there will be more routes available if they're in the hands of the state? And I think if as a taxpayer, if things go wrong, would you rather things go wrong and pay up for it, or would you rather leave it in the hands of private businesses where you don't even have some of those bus routes at all in any way, shape or form? I think, if I'm honest, guys, I think I'd rather leave it in the hands of the state than leave it in the hands of private companies where the only thing that matters to them is the bottom line. So buses, I've read that already. Sorry. Outside London, bus services have dropped by 50% since 2008, according to research by Friends of the Earth, whose people on low incomes and those without a car disproportionately affected. It's just right there. 50% since 2008. So it was dropping since. So it's dropped obviously at the tail end of the Labour government, and it's been dropping ever since under Conservatives. As I said, austerity has played a factor into it. Bus use plummet during the pandemic, but even before then, it was steadily declining in areas outside the capital. One area buckling the nation's trend is Reading. The town 40 miles to the west of London was hit by COVID restrictions like everywhere, but the number of journeys on local bus services have been on the rise before the pandemic too. Reading is one of only 5 areas in England where the local bus company is owned by the council. Robert Williams, the chief executive of Reading Buses, said it means profits can be reinvested into services. We're able to take a longer term view. We're not consistently being chased to make sure our profit margins is at a certain level, because our brief is to just provide the best possible service we can, he says. You have local people that lives and breathes the area, running the service and working out what should happen. It's not a central head office hundreds of miles away. It also means that if the council puts money into things like bus lanes, it sees a direct return. Better services, more passengers and higher revenue from fares, which can then be reinvested. An extra £3 billion a year goes into the town's bus network because it does not pay out dividends to private shareholders. According to a campaign group, We Own It. The council says this means it has been able to invest one of the most environmentally friendly bus fleets in the country, including a 66 biogas powered and 24 electric buses, which is the one you guys saw in the picture there. Until the 1980s, most bus services were directly through public-owned companies, often run by councils. But in 1986, outside London, where deregulated and privatised, leading to mass-scale council bus companies. In London, the franchise system was introduced, with Transport for London deciding routes, timetables and fares, operations bidding to run services for a fixed fee. This has contributed to the capital seeing an increase in bus use, with services less hit by cuts in contrast to other parts of the country. In 2017, metropolitan mayors in England were given powers to introduce bus franchises, but at the same time, councils were banned from setting up their own bus companies from scratch. If it wins power, Labour says it would give all areas the same opportunity to introduce franchising as metro mayors, as well as allowing councils and regional mayors to set up their own bus companies. Yes, put it in the hands of those who know the areas better than anyone and where the buses need to be. Mr. Williams is a supporter of the council-owned model, but has doubts over how easy it would be to replace this more widely. He said, you'd have to be able to buy a depot, buy the vehicles, employ the people. He says, setting that up from scratch is no quick job. No, of course, it all costs money. But again, like, this is the exact same example as I said about HS2, right? If you like, yes, HS2 costs a lot of money, but it pays back itself in the long term. It's the exact same thing with these buses. Yes, you are paying for it now, but it pays back in the long term because you are creating more jobs, you are creating more opportunities, you're creating more for new businesses. And for these people, yeah, also as well, in terms of public buses as well, it means less people are using their cars. So it means they're reducing their emissions as well. Yeah, and bus fares are cheaper than bus fares will be cheaper than obviously owning a car, paying for its insurance, looking after it, MOT, all those costs, guys. They all run up, stack up all those costs when it comes to a car. You won't need that if you can get to A to B. If your buses are reliant enough in that public area, again, you're saving yourself money and you're reducing emissions. And also with certain bus routes, obviously opens up job opportunities in some areas as well, in certain towns and whatnot, which means businesses can set up shop knowing that they can bring traffic to them because there's a reliable bus service as well. So it creates opportunities as well. Although not on the same schedule as HS2, of course it's not the same scale, but it still does make a big difference. And we want less cars on our roads. Yeah, which is why it was so important for me for HS2 to keep going. Yes, despite all the ground costs. Exactly the same thing, though. In Reading, he points out the council has owned the local bus service for more than 100 years. Labour claims his plans will require no additional central government funding. But Mr. Williams is sceptical over whether councils which are facing huge financial challenges will have the money to set up their own bus companies at the moment. No, they will not be able to, guys. It will cost too much money at the moment for things. And I get people want Labour to invest. But we know where Labour stand when it comes to finances. To improve the services, he says it also requires investment. In Reading, he says the bus service is getting very little subsidy from the council as it benefits from its location as a big, busy commuter town. If you try to replicate this in the middle of the countryside, we clearly wouldn't be able to sustain the same kind of network, he adds. No, but you can see, obviously, London buses are pretty much... not all of them are in this new model, but they are changing some of them, obviously. Paul Sweeney, Director of Research and Policy at the Centre for Cities think tank, says there are easier ways to achieve the benefits of greater control over bus service than full public ownership. If a company is publicly owned, it is the taxpayer that is taking the risk if it goes bust, he points out. Yes, but like everything, it is a risk, but as long as it is being run efficiently and effectively, is that not what the main thing is? And what's the priority when it comes to... And again, I go back to this point. Yes, you are running that risk of taxpayers paying it out for it. But again, you're leaving it in the hands of the state and not in the hands of private companies with their one and only assets are making profits more than anything. Instead, the think tank supports the expansion of the franchise system, which is in place in London, has also been adopted in Greater Manchester. Sweeney says, under a franchise model, councils and mayors still have control over bus routes and can ensure they are integrated into a cohesive network with other forms of public transport like trains. They can also keep hold of fares and choose to subsidise less profitable routes which are still vital for certain groups. Exactly. It's the routes that don't make money. Those ones really are mattering to some people. You know, like you just think about certain rural areas and imagine just even if the bus is coming every hour or every 2 hours, you know, how important that is for some certain people in those areas. You know, them able to travel into town and whatnot to be able to work, you know, rather than them having to shut up shop or move away from their area because they don't have that service. It hurts communities as well not having that service. Although he says it won't necessarily make single journeys cheaper, it is easier to bring in daily caps across the whole network. The only difference to full public ownership is that it is private companies running the service. Mr. Sweeney, it says past experience showing that some level of public subsidy will still be necessary. In London, for example, the Tube generates surplus revenue, which is used to subsidise buses which run at a loss. Other options for councils include generate money through cohesion charges or parking levies. Excuse me. Mr. Sweeney also believes funding would be needed to set up a new franchise model. Greater Manchester Combined Authority calculated it would cost £134 million to build the region's buses under public control, and has made use of central government funding as part of its devoted deal to pay for this. The progress has been implemented in phases and is due to be completed in 2025. But Labour Mayor Andy Burdham says there has been an immediate improvement, including more frequent buses, later and earlier services, and better connections to trains and trams. Transport for Greater Manchester says the latest data shows its buses are now more reliable, with passenger numbers up. However, not everyone has been won over by the idea of greater public control of buses. During the recent mayoral campaign, the then West Midlands Conservative Mayor Andy Street attacked his Labour opponent's plans to take buses back under public control, saying the party has not said where the money would do this, where it would come from. Labour's Richard Parker, who won the contest, has pledged to build a London-style integrated transport network to make buses more affordable, reliable and frequent. In Reading, being owned by the council has not made the bus service immune from the challenges facing other parts of the country. It has suffered from a drop in commuters during this pandemic, with the rise of working from home. The number of people travelling by bus or train stations to get into London has been hit. When things like that happen, my best solution is whatever in these kind of situations where they have to make cuts or whatever to buses, don't cut the routes. Cut the if it means instead of it being every 30 minutes, then make it every hour. If it means that it can't do it every hour, make it every 2 hours. But don't cut the routes. Don't cut the routes is the message I have. I know it seems harsh because obviously if someone misses that 2-hour bus route and they've got to wait another 2 hours, it could be detrimental to them. I get that, but don't cut the routes is the message I have for any bus service out there. That just highlights the risk that goes wild with running a bus company, Mr. Williams said. Anything that can affect your passenger numbers, whether it's in your control or outside, if the council gets it wrong and puts out the wrong service level or don't get the growth it's expecting, the taxpayer is going to be paying for that. Yeah, it is going to be paying for that. There's absolutely no question that the taxpayer is going to be paying for it. It's obviously if you're going to be putting it in the hands of us, the taxpayer, obviously, when it comes to public ownership. But I think overall it's a risk worth taking, if I'm absolutely honest. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat with regards to this. Andy Strib would be the odious Creekton, says Duke Vengeance. I'm glad he's gone, says Duke Vengeance as well. Now we have gridlock with public transport is supposed to support, says Steve McMorran. Rural areas don't make the money, so the service gets cut. Yeah, especially, public private companies will just cut those services, Stephen Banker, because then they're not worth it. But they still need a service. But they should, in my opinion, rural areas should get a bus. Obviously not, I mean, you have to be, you have to find the balance of what is a fair time slots here for buses in rural areas to come every hour, every 2 hours, and how does the cost effectiveness for worth that? How many people will get on that bus in that rural area for it to be worth the value for it? You know, those are the questions we need to ask, isn't it? Steve MGM, bus lanes in Edinburgh and Glasgow now to help with the traffic. Satru says, I only speak for big cities. Rural here has no good public transport there. Inside the buses there are 2 staff, the driver and the one to take care of the payment. If only the driver is in the bus, it means you must pay the bus station before and many staff. That's in Indonesia, is that right, Satu? If I'm right. I haven't used a bus in 20 plus years, but I used to live in Edinburgh, so I used to use LRT buses all the time. They weren't great back then, but there were a lot of them and you could get them anywhere cheap, says Phil McCracken. Yeah, I mean, even if it's nice of a case of if you didn't need it, but it's there if you need it, sort of thing. But again, yeah, it's like, cost and obviously. Let's see what you guys are saying about buses. Problem is weaving the public off the private cars so much. Well, if the buses are reliable and they're cheaper and you can get to A to B and it's not too much problematic, then why not use the bus? Some people. I mean, I know people who used to drive, and they cycle to work now because it's just not so much for reducing emissions, but just because for the cost effectiveness of it. Buses are important. You need them sometimes, especially in the rural areas. Trains are used for more long distances, Joe. Yeah, Yeah, I agree with that statement. Last month I even saw my train had a new train and it's freaking luxury looking. Bought a new house, made new kind of buses, and now people starting to look like to use it. Even people use trash buses just for the experience level, for viral. So that's true. Buses here always government owned. It was bad, stink and pathetic, but that's why people use taxis and online transport like Uber. But I think in the last few years they've revamped the public buses. We have, what's Reg saying here? We have free buses for pensioners, to disabled and young folk here in Scotland, but they are still privately operated. Time we took them back into public ownership. If I had a job interview with Beeston there, could I either walk there or just about an hour? I could take a bus to Wolverhampton and then another bus back to Beeston. It takes about 50 minutes, Duke Vengeance says there. One problem public buses have is they stink. Well, what's the reason they stink? There's lots of reasons, to be fair. The bus looks so good, sis. That's true. Yeah, they do. Interesting thoughts on it, that's for sure. When the service was in public hands, they operated even at times when they were unprofitable. They were still serving people who had to travel outside peak hours. Now those services have gone, Steve McMorran. Yeah, that's not good. The buses round here in Tobay can still find some of our hills dangerously steep, says one angry pagan. Yeah, it is a bit scary in some rural areas. Obviously, some of the roads could be quite tight and whatnot, and then you see a bus obviously going through it. Yeah, it can be a bit like that. 91 Leeds is here. Good to see you, Leeds. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully, I haven't missed any. Oh, and Solari the cat, I think, sneaked in as well there. Good to see you, Solari, as well. Right, guys, we're going to take a little break. I've got a couple more articles for you guys, so we'll see how time goes. This is what's that, Ollie? Huh? Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I've got that for them at the end of the video. No, I'm not going to tell them now. Yeah, I'll tell them later. Okay. Yeah. We'll do that. I'll do that. We'll do that at the end. Ollie says. Yeah. What am I talking about? You'll find out at the end of the show. What funny video we got? But this one is from some. We got some broken news has come in. So Larry and Paul, they always have these. They just keep finding these stories, guys. I don't know where they get their sources from, but they must be very, very reliable. But let's hear what they have to say today.
Welcome to Broken News. Some breaking news this hour, and the celebrity who you idolised and adored while you were growing up has turned out to be a massive twat. It brings to an end any suggestion that you could have been BFFs with them. Our reporter has more.
A nation in mourning. Millions are waking up to the news that the sportsperson, musician, comedian, actor or academic that they've spent so many years admiring and venerating is, as it turns out, an unmitigated wankshaft. The news comes as that person has, for some reason, decided to go on a racist tirade on their Instagram account while seemingly pissed up on booze. Last week, the celebrity who you used a poster of to cover your maths exercise book in Year 10 decided they simply must become involved in a subject they know fuck all about for some reason, wading into it like a flailing tosspot into a river of shit. It added to recent controversy when the household name, who started out as a working class hero, suddenly outed themselves as a swivel-eyed right-wing lunatic, now that they're rich and famous and want to protect their wealth. The news comes as a blow to those people who had often daydreamed about bumping into the star and spending a bit of time with them in a pub. That now can't happen because of the compunction to smash their stupid head against a fucking wall. There is a silver lining in today's report, though. Broken News understands that David Attenborough is still lovely. Back to you.
Oh, thank God.
Well, as a lifelong Eric Clapton fan, there's certainly no worries for me on that score. What a lovely story. That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
Whew. Just glad about David Attenborough. Whew. Oh, just glad about David Attenborough. But, oh my God. I can't believe they said that about my childhood hero. Absolutely abhorrent. Absolutely abhorrent, guys. How could they say that about my childhood hero? Absolutely terrible, guys. Absolutely terrible. And, Alistair Keir, thank you so much for the 5 gifted memberships, my friend. It's much appreciated. Very kind as always. He's gifted 5 gifted memberships to Stu Viking President. Oh, I must seek citizenship in the land of Stu Viking President. I need to seek citizenship there. Max X is there, gifted membership as well. Jack Reports, A, D, and Peter Jackson. Is that D, Peter Jackson, the guy who made Lord of the Rings? Answers on a postcard, please. Thank you so much for the 5 gifted memberships. And what an interesting time for the 5 gifted memberships as well. Guys, if you want to financially support me in any way, shape or form, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 95p. Being a YouTube member gives you access to a very fancy perks, custom emojis that you can get right here, that those in the live chat are going to be using right now here on YouTube. And also, whenever you comment on any of my videos as a YouTube member, you also get a response and any of my videos regarding them. And I also do 1 or 2 extra community posts for members as well. If you're a $2.99 member, a Snowflake Corporal, being a $2.99 member gets you early access to my content. Excuse me, which actually, by the way, at the end of this live stream, I'm going to make the videos ready for the next 2 days, will be available for members as soon as this live stream is over, because I was supposed to do it before I went live and I haven't. So I will do that for you guys when this live stream is over, because I've got some videos ready for you guys. I just had to wait for monetization to go through. As you guys know, the shorts are already up for you guys. So you can see them already before people on YouTube get to see them, before they see it on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Before you get to see them there on all those platforms, you get to see them early here because you're a YouTube member. So I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's been a YouTube member. It's greatly appreciated. Otherwise, if you want to financially support me, is by buying me a coffee. A link is in the description if you want to do that, or you can join me on Patreon. Joining the Patreon community gets you access to exclusive content behind a little bit more bit personal stuff there, so which you can join on as well. And also obviously I do additional content. So if you guys are ways you and just a non-financial way of supporting me, guys, I do exclusive content on Patreon, which you can join. You don't even have to be a member, but you can literally see the content on Patreon. Also on Facebook now, so I have a Facebook page at REGANELITE as well. So if you have Facebook, feel free to follow me on, like the page on there. It really does help. And you'll also see additional content on there. So I don't just drop shorts on there. You get additional content that is just exclusively on Facebook as well, and it's UK news, guys, so you get a bit more on there. So if you have Facebook, do follow the page at REGANELITE. Link for that is in the description. And also on Rumble, I've been covering this week mainly, it's been about the war on Gaza. So if you want to hear more about my thoughts and some of the stories that are happening with regards to the war and conflict within Gaza, check out my Rumble content as well this week. I've got 3 videos dropping on Rumble, Patreon, and Facebook this week. Spread it out variously on, throughout those platforms there. So thank you to everyone who has followed me or liked or any of those stuff. It is greatly appreciated. Did I see Matt just sneak in? I did see Matt. Good to see you, Matt. Hope you're doing well. 91 Lisa, if I didn't say hello, good to see you there. Caffel is here as well. Good to see you, Caffel. Hope you're doing well. Stu Viking President is here. I need to talk to him about applying for citizenship in his country at some point as well. And so Larry the Cat saying something silly there. I don't know what he's referring to. Andy Street is in a relationship with Michael Fabricant. Yes, that's Fabric. I see what you're saying there, Duke. And also, just a reminder, I'm going to end the poll very soon. For those who haven't casted their votes on who should be blamed for the infected blood scandal. Should it be politicians, healthcare workers, both, or others? Leave your vote in the comments section down below. However, I will say I wish I added civil servants in that, as Phil McCracken had pointed out, because yes, civil servants should have played a role, will no doubt have played a role in that as well. Right, next topic I've got for you guys. Brexit. £5 billion Brexit border checks. It still has no timetable for launch, spending, Watchdog has said. This is from The Independent. The government has no clear timetable to fully implement its post-border controls with the EU, the National Audit Office warns. Crying out loud. Why? Like, it's just, we are imposing austerity on ourselves. We are putting up these barriers on ourselves here. Barry C, it's good to see you there on Twitch. Communism is evil. Communism is evil, says Barry there. Yeah, we're still talking about Brexit, guys. Like they keep saying I keep seeing them in my comments on my videos, like, it's done, get over it, move on. And it's just like, no, we can't. It's not going to be that simple. There's a lot of issues. The problems are not going to go away, and yeah, it's just not going to go away. And you know, I just feel, I really do feel for businesses, because so many are going to suffer as a result of these checks, but they keep differing and delaying on them because they know the damage it's going to cause once it gets implemented. I'm sure behind the scenes they've seen like the numbers of how much damage it's going to do for businesses and for the economy once they impose these checks, which is why I think they're delaying it. And they're kind of like hoping, part of me feels like that the government is kind of like, you know what? We're just going to keep holding it off. We'll just keep laying it off until I'm just going to charge one of my devices. We're just going to hold it off, guys, until Labour get into because we know we're going to lose this. We know we're going to lose this general election. So we'll let Labour deal with it. Rather than us deal with it. Let Labour deal with it. It'll be their problem. And then if it goes wrong, we can just blame Labour, because it's all going to be Labour's fault now. It will all be Labour's fault. It have nothing to do with us. This is the position they're gonna try and take on this. So yeah, I've actually got a Brexit video dropping in over the next day or two as well. So our post-Brexit border control system designed to take control of Britain's borders has no clear timetable for completion, warned the National Audit Office, the NAO, today. Public Spending Watchdog has said repeated changes and deferrals to the government's flagship plan for full import controls from the EU was leading to uncertainty for businesses and extra costs for government and ports. The Border Target Operating Model, the BTOM, is being built and through phases, with the second part for animal and plant exports coming in on 30th of April. A third part of the model on safety and security declarations is due to be introduced in October, but it is not clear when full controls will be in place. The scheme, which hopes to make the world's most effective border, lacks a clear timetable and integrated cross-government delivery plan, says NAO in a report issued. The office says that since the transition period concluded at the end of 2020, the government has delayed its plans 5 times and spent money on infrastructure and staff that were ultimately not needed, such as what we covered with regards to Portsmouth. We know that lots of money of Portsmouth Council wasted a lot of its own money on it, and is seeking money back, compensation back from the government on that, because they were told to build this and now they were told not to build this. So they're saying, hey, we spent our budget on this, you owe us some money. And I'm sure they're not the only ones. So yeah, more unnecessary costs. And actually, if we recall, guys, they actually said it would have been it's cheaper actually for them to knock it all down than to try and refurbish it to what it is now. So yeah. The overall cost of the system is set to be £4.7 billion, eliminating the NAO. Gareth Davis, head of the NAO, said the UK leaving the EU created a large-scale change in arrangements for the movement of goods across the border. However, more than 3 years after the end of the transition period, it is not clear when the full controls will be in place. The border strategy has ambitious plans to use technology and data to facilitate trade while managing risks to achieve its objectives. Government requires strong delivery and accountability, including a more realistic approach to digital transformation, together with effective monitoring to enable future improvements. Now, I'm all for, obviously, more for digitalization and improvements and all that kind of stuff, but that's not going to fix the problems. That's not going to. It's not going to change the fact that we're still going to have red tape. I do generally believe that Labour will try to reduce the red tape. How they're going to reduce it, obviously, Regan, I have no idea. That's just going to be flat honest. But I do think they will look to try and reduce the red tape somehow. Somehow they will try to reduce the red tape. Yeah, that's all I can add on that point. The BTOM is a new approach to security controls applying to all imports and sanitary and psychosanitary products, applying to imports of all live animal products, plants and plant products at the border. It sets out how controls will be simplified and digitalized. Can I say it right? Hope so. And Britain's ambition for the UK's new single trade window but it's had critics. Many fear the system will add delays, red tape, and cost to many imports, with small and medium-sized businesses to be the most impacted. The easy phase of the border check system will be rolled out on Easter Monday was rolled out on the Easter Monday bank holiday weekend. Yeah, because they tried to obviously slide it under the carpet because they didn't want people obviously talking too much about it at the time. With Marco for why can I not say that word? The Director General of the Institute of Exports and International Trade claiming it was a smart move to introduce additional checks during a time when traffic was going to be reduced. The report by NAO did note that border processes, including the introduction of full custom controls, have largely operated smoothly since the UK's exit from the EU, but said that business trading goods between the UK and the EU have faced additional costs and administrative burden. Yeah, we're aware of that. Martin McTay, the National Chair of the Federation of Small Business, said that the group's research showed almost 1 in 10 small firms that used to export or import goods have stopped doing so in the past 5 years, in part due to the volume of paperwork, costs and supply chain of logistical issues. He said government needs to ensure that changes are better planned, timetabled and tested to ensure operations run smoothly. This will minimise damage to trade and indeed our international global reputation. I mean, like, yes. I mean, on an international scale, like outside the EU, like there's nothing really to change in that. But obviously, like our neighbours across the pond, it's not ideal in any way, shape, or form.
I don't think anybody thinks
it's generally frustrating to say the least.
Ambitious.
And I why was this playing? It's just yeah. More Brexit issues, guys. Obviously, we'll obviously continue to cover it. I'll continue to cover it as much as I possibly can. But you know, things are going to get worse before they get better with regards to Brexit. That's the sheer reality. So the sooner we get something sorted, the better. Spanners assemble. Why? What's going on in the chat? Who's called? I hope there's no trouble being caused. Should be plenty of spanners in there. At least I hope not. Anyway, Satu, it's a gamble with food and shops. Says Alistair Keir. I'm just going to scroll up because the thing. Phil, don't give your hopes up there politically and probably everything else thick, says Ruth. What did Phil say? Just scroll up just to see what that comment is. I just thought it was full of our souls. See, I said the wrong word there. But I love the border's way of life. I lay back and work life and activities being able to downtime used to the tree fell away. Chat, behave or hammer will fall. What's going on? I'm the mad one, but not that mad one. The other one, I'm the twice mad, but I'm the other mad today. Okay, Duke. I heard the administration's a bit clown and this end. Yeah, they are a bit clown. Yeah, our ones. How much food has got into the country? Yeah. How long until the says that was Stephen Banker. Jal says, how long until the WTO lays the wrath of God in the UK or the EU sues the UK for not doing so? Wait, what? Communism? Did I miss something? No, it's the chat from the Twitch chat, Duke. Checks are up since checks are up since day one over 3 years ago. Tory plan not working, called me shock, says Context. Kicking it into the long grass yet again. Are we surprised, says Larry the Cat. If you can see it, refresh the live stream, it will pop up. Are you throwing to the poll, which I'm going to be ending in a moment anyway. Fruit and veg is actually starting to go off while sitting on the shelves if it's then not empty, says Stephen Banker. Yeah, it's almost impossible. Yeah, fruit and veg is a massive problem. I hate this crap, says One Angry Pagan. Yeah, it is a lot of crap, to be fair. Got 2 more articles for you guys. I'm going to run through the next one. Hopefully it won't take too long, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who cast their votes in the live YouTube chat poll. Who should be blamed for the infected blood scandal? 52% say politicians, 42% said both, 5% said others, healthcare workers, and not just blaming healthcare workers outright. But yeah, I do agree with the consensus that I think actually politicians, healthcare workers, civil servants, there were multiple groups obviously responsible, but thanks everyone for casting their votes on that. Much appreciated.
Enough italics.
The next one I've got for you guys is an exclusive
but they
from
are
my news.
Certainly
the headline is Labour.
And
Stop playing.
They are
Stop playing the video. God damn it. It's got mine if it's home. Labour's not ambitious enough for supporters and polls will tighten, says Kinnock. Whether that means Labour is the largest party or wins the majority, I don't know. The former Labour leader insists the I. So are Labour not ambitious enough? Well, let's just hear a bit of what he had to say before he was rudely cutting me off there. I can't believe politicians can be so rude, and this one is no different, obviously.
Oh, I don't think anybody thinks that they're ambitious enough, italics, but they are certainly progressive and they are impressive. And the thing is, they address basic concerns that go across the country. So I think it's a very, very good initiative.
Obviously, Keir has been accused of dumping various policies, the 28 billion, the renationalisation of various industries, all sorts of things. Do you think he's flopped, or do you think
No. God, no. Two things that are, again, realities. The one is those speeches, statements, publications that he made in 2020 were in different economic circumstances. And that really changed everybody's arithmetic and changed the size of the cloth that we've got to cut. That's a reality. Here has to take full account of that. The second thing is, run twice to be Labour leader myself. The vital requirement is that you express yourself in a way that shows you understand the feelings and aspirations of the Labour Party. Now that's an electorate, in my case, of about, 250,000, in Keir's case of about 500,000, and therefore there are two electorates and they have to be addressed in different ways. Now, that would be the case in any circumstances. But when you've got a seismic disaster of the size inflicted on the economy by Liz Truss and subsequently by Sunak, that changes all the sums.
Interesting words there from Kinnock. Obviously, where did he talk? I was expecting that comment, Duke. I was expecting a comment like that. I'm not going to read the article just because on the premise of time, but I wanted to play that at least. But he basically saying that Labour are not ambitious enough for supporters and the polls will tighten. Now, will the polls tighten? I have still kind of sat on this position for a long time in the premise that the polls, that I don't think the gap will stay as big as it is. There was a poll out that I saw online that Max quote tweeted. I saw showing Labour with such a huge majority, which I thought no, the people want the government out, but they're not all gonna go deep diving into Labour. At least I don't think so. And the thing is the thing that I really stress, and I have to stress this so many times, how much are any of these polls taking into account ID, voter ID? And the truth is, they're not. Because they can't. Because there's no data to show how much of a factor that's going to play at this general election. So no matter how much data you play into this, we just don't know what the general election numbers are going to be like because of voter ID. We can only take the data we can from local elections, but obviously local elections are different to general elections, and we've never had a general election with voter ID, so that is going to play a part in this. So how that's going to play out, we don't know, but I do think that's a very serious part to play into it. Now, as Labour not ambitious enough, I agree with him. Labour are not ambitious enough. I also part of me understands and a part of me doesn't understand the premise of Labour being a broad church. Obviously, we all disagree with the last Labour defectee. I'm not even going to mention that person's name because I can't even pronounce her name properly. Natalie something. I'm sure someone mentioned it in the chat. There's a possibility this Wednesday there could be another defection potentially before the break. I am going to cover PMQs live this Wednesday. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to, just because there's not going to be a PMQs after this week, so I am going to cover it live stream. So if you guys want to join me for the PMQs live, you're more than welcome to do so. But there is this premise that's coming around where that Labour are trying to appeal to the right to show that they can be those for the left and for the right, and try to sit as much as they possibly can in the centre, while trying to appeal to two different sides to bring in to show that they are a broad church for all and not just for one side. Now it seems reasonable, but the problem is the right are not. I wouldn't call people on the right. I would call them mad, because they spew out a lot of disingenuous misinformation, misogynistic stuff, and that's where misogynistic, especially when you look on the lines of some of the political parties and some of the wordings that we hear, that kind of their kind of rhetoric goes against, for me, any kind of democratic value principles. And the only reason I see them appealing to them, the Labour Party, is because they are, because they want to keep them happy. They want to sugarcoat and sweet them. That's kind of how I see it. Whether it will work, for them in the long term, I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think so is because people on the left, and especially the progressive left, are already turning away from Labour, especially with the Gaza situation. Many people don't like, obviously the £28 billion change on that, even though they are still committed to the Green Prosperity Fund. It's just the funding has obviously changed. But I think it's a more of a lot of tit for tat, a lot of talking, just like Kinnock here. But I do agree that Labour are not ambitious enough. But I also say, and I think this is a point, I was also saying, let's wait and see what the manifesto is and see exactly what it says on the tin about what they're going to promise, what they're going to commit to, and then we will know then where Labour kind of stand. Because once the manifestos come in, this is where they are like, aha, this is what you are promising, you must deliver this, bish bash boss sort of thing. So that's kind of on Labour there. So guys, I've got one more story for you guys here, just because I've noticed the time. One angry pagan is asking, will there be a Discord after chat tonight? Not tonight, no, but I will do one Wednesday. I was going to do one tonight, but I can't do tonight, but I will do one this Wednesday. So I'll remind me on Wednesday after Snowflake Watch. I'll do one for you guys then, but I can't do one tonight, unfortunately. So this last article we got for you guys is from Barline Times. So potential Conservative leadership candidate Robert Jenrick blames donation for Dormant firm on administrative error. The MP reported a donation from the company that appears to be inactive in the UK, which his team has now told Barline Times was a mistake. Sorry, the thing that really kind of just this bit here, this bit here. Really? He's not a leader. He's not a leader. He's a follower. He's a sheep. He ain't no wolf. Just going to put that out there. So what's this about? So a senior Conservative MP has registered a £5,000 donation from a company that appears to be inactive in what could constitute a breach of electoral rule. What you don't say. Robert Jenrick recently received a donation from Firefly Digital Limited, which had been registered as a dormant since 2017. According to the filing with Companies House, as journalist Peter Jorhidian reported last Friday. But electoral rules in the UK are explicit that donations can only come from permissible sources, which for firms mean they must carry on business in the UK. In other words, they must be actively trading. This rule prevents shell companies being used to funnel improperly cash to political figures, for example, the non-Brits living overseas. Well, we know that they have these filthy rich people abroad are setting up setting up fake companies and whatnots within the UK and then funnel it through to them like that. We know they're doing that. Firefly Digital Limited, however, has filed dormant company accounts for 7 years. The latest records show assets of just heard some noise downstairs. Hopefully, Mrs. is okay. Of just £1 and no profits. This strongly suggests that it is not actively conducting business within the UK. Firefly Digital Limited is ultimately owned by Hilton Nathanson, a British-Australian hedge fund manager. Nathanson also donated £5,000 to Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove last year. So this is the Robert Jenrick interest, registered of interest, name of donor, its address, its amount of donation, date received, date accepted, donor status, company registration number. So this is on the filings there that Byline Times printed off. Jenrick was forced to resign as Housing Secretary in 2020 amid a donation scandal when it emerged that it had overrun a planned inspector decision to award planning permission for a $1 billion property scheme by media tycoon Richard Desmond just a fortnight before he donated £12,000 to the Conservative Party. Jenrick said he had no knowledge of Desmond's donation and claimed it was his decision to overrule inspections was not unusual, the BBC reported at this time. Guys, I'm just going to leave this here. I'm just going to double check that the missus is okay, because it's not like I just heard quite a large noise. I will be back in a moment. Just bear with me. Just me overreacting as always, guys. Yeah, so these are the balance sheets for Firefly Digital Limited here as of 31st December there as well. The latest document accounts from Firefly Digital Limited as well. After being contacted by Byline Times, a spokesperson for Robert Jenrick blamed an administrative error on the £5,000 donation from Firefly Digital Limited, which his team has said led to the sum being incorrectly registered with the House of Commons Authority. The donation was made from Firefly Capital Limited, a UK trading company, the spokesperson said. Unfortunately, administrative error at time meant the donation was misregistered as Firefly Digital Limited. It's funny. It's funny how it happened right at the, on the same day, yep, everything appears to be fine, As soon as we became aware of this error, we liaisoned the parliamentary authorities who have agreed to correct the record. This will be reflected in our next update. I wonder if it wasn't for Byline Times, would they have responded as quickly as they did? Me wonders. Jenrick has been touted as a potential leadership candidate for the right of the party. Okay. Should Rishi Sunak stand down following a likely general election defeat? He has been speaking at a string of hardline events, including one hosted by the Liz Truss affiliated group Popular Conservatism and the Liaison Institute Free Market Roadshow. It is possible that Byline Times first alerted Jenrick's team to the issue. The MP spokesperson added, office has become aware of an error last week and immediately asked for it to be corrected. But Lord Chris Renard, who led much of the Liberal Democrats' work on electoral laws, said the laws governing the permissible of donations to parties have been in place since 2000. Alistair Keir, thank you so much for that £5 super chat. Welsh Labour, just the loss of the Welsh Indie Party confidence supply because of a backhander to the new First Minister. Yeah, there was that donation kind of just really just threw everything into chaos for the Welsh administration. That was definitely some dodgy stuff there. Thanks for the £5 super chat, Alistair. Much appreciate it. He added that fears over inappropriate donations were well founded, calling for greater transparency in the cap and the size of the donations. As reported by Byline Times last week, transparency campaigners have raised concerns that individuals can use companies to donate money to politicians. The law is intended to provide transparency and controls over the provenance of funds in UK politics, yet it's increasingly clear that it does neither sufficiently. So Goodwick, head of research and investigation at Transparency International, said, that can be so hard to identify when corporate donors money comes from shows that there's something seriously wrong with the rules. We know the rules are broken. But and Byline Times are just regurgitating a lot of this for us. And I'm glad that they brought up Jenrick and exposing him as one of many who are causing mayhem. As a minimum, business should only be able to donate if they can cover the cost from profits generated in the UK within the last 2 years. The Electoral Commission guidelines state that for a company to have permissible donor, it must be registered at a company house incorporated in the UK and actively carrying out a business in the UK. Dormant companies are specifically flagged as required extra scrutiny to ensure compliance. You know what they should do? You know what one thing they could do if they really want to keep this kind of crap going, which I don't think they should, they could say that they must be registered at least for 5 years before it can be used. That might help. Just saying. Might. Don't think it will, but with citizens in this case, Robert Jenrick are responsible for checking that donations are made within the rules according to Electoral Commission. Former dormant companies that can include checking the company's latest accounts, websites, and other relevant business activities to see if they are actively trading. Spokesperson for the Electoral Commission told Byline Times the law requires regulated drones, i.e. recipients such as MPs, to take reasonable steps to ensure that a donation from a source is permissible and at a time the donation was received. MPs report donations to the registered members' financial interests. These are then forwarded to us for publication on a monthly basis. Where there is evidence that the law has not been followed, we may consider it in line with our enforcement policy. The remit of the Electoral Commission was significantly weakened by the Elections Act in 2022, with it now lacking the power to launch prosecutions. It can only levy relatively small fines. The Parliamentary Standards Commissioner said it did not comment on individual cases. Of course they don't. They don't want to say anything. Because it's from Byline Times. How many other media outlets are going to report this? Maybe The Guardian? Maybe. They're going to keep quiet about it, aren't they? It's very, very frustrating to say the least. It's... This is the thing. They keep buying influence of our politicians. We need to sever this tie. The tie between politicians and these political donors and whatnot. The tie needs to be broken. Well, the problem is it's so embedded in politicians and so embedded in our system that it's going to be near to next to impossible. Like, I know this premise of sometimes tearing the entire system down is probably the style, but it would just throw the whole entire country, UK into chaos. Well, for throw England into chaos, Scotland will be all right, but I'll throw England into chaos. In doing so, but yeah, the system is just so broke. It's just insane. I don't see Labour like coming in and fundamentally changing everything for the benefit of people. No, it will keep enough people happy. They will make minor changes, but not the changes that generally people like myself and many of you in the chat want. Just gonna turn you around, Ollie. Ollie's a lot happier. Now, because we're coming near the end of the show. It's not over yet. Got one more video for you guys. A nice funny video to see ourselves out. You haven't seen this one actually, because this one's not too well. Actually, to be fair, probably some of you may have seen this video. What's that, Pingu? Oh, there's a new guys. There's been a new defection to the Labour Party. Oh my God, I cannot believe. Keir Starmer has pulled off a massive swipe here, guys. Take it away, Michael. Here, what a swipe of a catch this one is.
Breaking news, and today Labour are welcoming yet another Tory defector to its party, Boris Johnson. He said today, "I can no longer support this government, and I now believe that only the Labour Party can provide the real change that this country needs." Keir Starmer was equally adhesive this afternoon. Boris Johnson is a good, natural fit for the Labour Party. Yes, we've had our differences in the past, but I believe that he should be commended for his change of heart. As we know, people who defect to Labour do so because of the needs of their constituents, not because they're untrustworthy, two-faced cowards.
Didn't you say he was the worst Prime Minister this country has ever had?
I am delighted to be working with Boris Johnson. He's a man of great experience. He's a man of great other things. And I think it would be a shame to dismiss him just because he was the worst Prime Minister this country has ever had.
What does it say about the integrity of your party that you'll seemingly take anyone right now?
Well, what I would say is this. It don't take money. It don't take fame. You don't need no credit card to ride this train.
Right. And before we
go...
Before we go, could you comment on this recent spate of bin lorries that have caught fire in the UK?
Why have they joined Labour too?
No.
Well, obviously, I am delighted that a spate of bin lorry fires have joined the Labour Party today.
No.
I look forward to working with them in the future.
Oh, it's just fun, guys. We're only making a bit of fun. Oh, it's only a bit of fun, guys. I mean, you know, you got, you know, after the defection, guys, what was so funny was seeing all the posters on social media of all the most evil and cruel people joining the Labour Party. There was ones of Nigel Farage. Someone even done a Donald Trump one. Joined the Labour Party. Dominic Cummings joined the Labour Party. I saw all these posters people were doing constantly after the defection. It was so funny. Oh, very, very good funny. A good video there to see ourselves done. So, guys, just to give you a quick rundown just before you guys head out, before I hit the outro, just quickly. So tomorrow, 6 p.m. We'll be premiering the World's News Round, where I'll cover news from outside the UK. So if you guys haven't got any plans, feel free to come and drop along and hang out with me in the chat there. I will be back on Wednesday with not one but 2 live streams at 12 o'clock. I will be covering Prime Minister's questions. So if you're around, feel free to come and join me there so we can listen to Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak throw punches at each other and decide which punch was very good and which one was not. And then we'll hear from the real common sense politician from Stephen Flynn, as well as other politicians making stupid comments and some making smart comments and questions and whatnot. I will also be back with the second live stream at 8 p.m. on Wednesday with the Snowflake Watcher. We'll cover various clips and whatnot of online. I'll probably cover some more bits with regard to Gaza as well. Thursday, 8 p.m, we will be premiering, as again, another episode of the Regan's News Round, so feel free to come and hang out there. And then finally, on Friday, 6 p.m, I will have the Snowflakes Corner, where we'll cover live stories from outside the UK. So that's the plans so far for this week. At the moment, I haven't decided whether or not I will do any premieres whatsoever over the weekend. So just... If something changes, I'll drop a community post and let you guys know. But I want to say massive thank you to everyone here in the chat. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you, Alistair Keir, for the super chat and the 5 gifted memberships. Thank you, Angry Pagan, earlier on for the £2 super chat. Greatly appreciated. Thank you all for your thoughts and your comments. And just before you go, there's just one thing I need you guys to do. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble, Patreon, or Facebook for exclusive content as well. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.